to Wake Up with Dr. Cheryl. I'm Dr. Cheryl. We have a very special guest, Kathleen Scherek. And she is an award-winning educator, and she's an author and a sacred parenting coach. And that's the key. We are the wealth of sacred parenting. She mentors parents-to-be, new parents, grandparents, and child professionals who care for young children for the first 7 years of their life. For more than 30 years, Kathleen has studied neuroscience, child development, energy psychology, vibrational health, quantum physics, and world religions. Woof! She has been a top international consultant for Fortune 200 executives. She has received professional recommendations or commendations from the White House for improving organizational performance in the United States. Kathleen co-founded the Montessori-based school and has served thousands of families and is a founding member of the trustee of several foundations. Kathleen, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm just very happy to have you and all your plethora of information and education on this show. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl. Let's have some fun. Let's have some good conversation. We always do. So
yes,
this is
yes,
great.
yes. We actually met in April, I think. We were doing a class for the podcasting.
Yes.
That's how we met. And so I'm happy that we have, because I was very impressed with you from the get-go and your contribution. And your book, Sacred Parenting, when will that be able to be released?
Oh, that's a good question. It's in the works right now. The working title is The Sacred Parent, 9 Keys to Consciously Onboard Your Child into a Thriving Life. So that is, I will let you know as soon as I know.
Good. So, let's, give a little background of yourself on how you got to where you are today.
Oh, I got to where I am. Well, that's a longer conversation, but
we have a few minutes before we dig deeper.
There are some funny things about, when I was 10 years old, when a girlfriend and I had our first school. We did marketing brochures and leafleted the neighborhoods, and we had a full class during the summer of children that we would teach at age 10.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm mentioning that because there's research now that shows that for women in particular, there isn't the same research for men, but for women in particular, they often later in life gravitate towards those things that they were passionate about between the ages of 10 and 12.
Oh, wow.
And so it's so interesting. I never considered myself a teacher or an educator or thought I would do that. In fact, I've spent, as you mentioned there, a good portion of my professional career in the corporate world.
Yep.
And but I did find that I was pulled. Really, when you're called to do something, you can't turn away from it. It's everywhere you go, you're feeling it. And to co-found this school now 24 years ago with an organic chef and with the latest in brain research and with 15 acres that these children can help raise llamas and chickens, and just all the groundedness that comes with nature in those early years of life.
And boy, do they need it today, especially with the tech.
Absolutely. It's a natural balancer. And again, research shows even dirt has such beautiful, wonderful chemicals in it that making mud pies is actually healthy for babies, for children. So, but I have found myself at points in my life teaching Montessori preschoolers in the morning and then advising international executives about corporate strategy in the afternoon. And this beautiful dichotomy between two different worlds, and yet they really are similar worlds. There are some similarities.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. There's things in business that are critical to running a successful organization that are the same to creating a holistic family presence. So there's some beautiful synergies that happen from it. But I ended up finding Dr. Cheryl, and I'm sure you've had guests that have probably done this as well, that I could not go too long in my professional career without having a hand in something having to do with my real passion. And for me, that was little children, young children. And the first 7 years of life is what I'm passionate about. I call it 7 years of sacred, and it begins 1 year before birth. So it really is preconception as well.
Wow. I mean, that says a lot, because some people, a lot of women get pregnant and they're not even planning it.
They're not planning, and they may not realize they're pregnant for a couple of months. And there's all, wonderful things that happen with the way children come to us.
Yeah. So,
and it's interesting, Dr. Scher, that my first research project, I'm just remembering this now, when I was in 5th grade, had to do with babies. My father was a chief of staff, OB/GYN at a hospital.
Okay. No wonder you have this influence.
So I have some influence, and I'm realizing, that I was in my first delivery room birth at around the age of 10.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, that was a blessing that your father gave you.
It really was, and the woman who allowed me to be in there, and the mom, because it was a transcendent experience. It really was.
I can imagine, especially at 10. Whoa.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that really spurred your passion too.
Well, I think it grounded me in that I wasn't aware of, again, for decades, because I went off to do a lot of things. I'm an entrepreneur. I've created a number of organizations, nonprofit, profit, small business, foundations, and things like that. So I'm an innovator at heart, and I did not think I would be back in this field. But again, when you turn one way and your heart isn't filled with that work, you turn towards the work that fills your heart. Yeah, and for me, that work has to do with children.
Yeah, and I think that that's true for even today. That's becoming more prevalent because it's being supported even more, because the corporate foundation of the ethics and integrity have been compromised. And I mean, that was my journey. And, to help me get on this path is to make it, more ethical and have more integrity. And I think that, people are focusing more on their passion and their purpose. And that is so important.
I hope so. It really is the engine that drives us. And that children come in already with that purpose within them. And it's up to us to kind of see the clues. They're giving us clues all the time.
Right.
Watch the clues and look for the treasures, look for the gems. What are the things that this child is naturally drawn to that my own filter would not see unless I am aware of it? And when children speak to us without words, and that purpose is within them already, and part of our reason for being is to help them develop that purpose.
Other than just seeing and supporting them, what else can parents do to help their children, adult children, small children, be successful?
Well, I've always said that children need 4 things. 1, to be loved and valued. I mean, it sounds like common sense, but unless we are mindful of it, it can escape us. Does this child feel loved and valued in this moment? Does this child feel loved and valued in this day?
Yeah.
In this interaction that I'm having, does this child feel loved and valued? That's number 1. Secondly, that the child is able to be seen for who they uniquely are, not who we want them to be, nor who we were not, perhaps, or who we wanted to be and were not, but for who they uniquely are, who they came here to be. The third thing is to realize, as we were just saying, that they have a divine purpose on the planet. and there may be more than one purpose, that's another conversation, but that they have it already within them. So the fourth thing is that it's part of our role, if we have a child in our life, either as a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, a teacher, a healer, a doula, whatever role we may have in a child's life, that we have some kind of a role in their divine plan on the planet.
Yeah, and I think the biggest one is supporting them, and
Yes.
and then supporting them being around other, adults or children that are, can support them too. I mean, it does take a village. I don't like saying that particular way, but it's true. It takes a team, it takes a village. So
well, it takes a village, but the village starts with one, and it starts with a child, and then it starts with an adult that sees the child. And when you have a village that it has clear sight, that's the best possible scenario.
Yeah.
Because we all find that we have our own psychology that can both help us and hinder us when we're nurturing a child. And the more that we can be aware of our own psychology and seek to constantly resolve or come to some kind of resolution with our own psychology in good ways, that enables us to see more clearly who that child uniquely is, what they're here to do, what they might be here to do.
And how does, having studied neuroscience, how does this affect what you're doing?
In what way?
Well, I mean, psychology and neuroscience, I mean, I know they're not exactly in alignment, but they work together. So, how does that affect, the neuroscience in this sacred parenting?
So there's so much more known about neuroscience now than there was 30 years ago, but that's when I became passionate about it. 31 years ago, I remember clearly when I was pregnant with my first child, I took a brain development course that Dr. Cheryl was based on research done with children who had TBI, traumatic brain injury. And so the research and the activities and the exercises that were done to help heal and bring about more normalized life for children with traumatic brain injuries, that research then, when applied to normal children, helps children be prepared neurologically and brain development wise for a healthier expression of their lives. There's some simple things. They sound simple, but they really are pretty profound. Getting ready for a meeting. There are people that do this in the business environment. Getting ready for a meeting, they may do a cross crawl, a cross lateral crawl, and to cross the midline of the body and integrate both hemispheres of the brain so that you can be fully alert. There's something that for children we call elephant ears, that you curl back the edges of your ears, and it works with the acupuncture points in the ears that wake us up. So the integration of neuroscience with both biology and psychology is just, it really is a wonderful collaboration that is happening more and more. And the thing that I always get so excited about is there's new research that comes out. And if we can take that and apply it to our early relationship with the child, that's where the sweet spot is to me. That's where in business parlance, we go upstream in the process. We go upstream to where the child is entering life, and actually use these kinds of exercises and use the things that we know about energy, and practice it so that it is the child's normal environment.
Can you give like one example?
Yes, absolutely. So we know that for children, the vestibular system that keeps us balanced is important in the learning process. So children who are 8, 9, 10 that have some issues with learning will be encouraged to do some exercises that help with their balance. Well, when they are infants, we can supersede this process, if you will, by rolling on the ground with them.
Oh,
By
interesting.
rolling on the ground, rolling down the hills.
Oh, yeah.
Cheryl, rolling down the hills.
I used to
Um,
have my we lived on a ranch, and I used to
yes.
have her do that from the top of the hill in a blanket because there's so much stuff on the ground, even poop. She'd roll down.
Yes, yes. And so from a very young age, we can do this with infants. There's a way to roll where you're just protecting the infant,
Right.
but they're developing their vestibular system very early on. And also mini trampolines are awesome for jumping and developing, again, the vestibular system. The inner ear is so crucial to learning later on.
And
it's
the
crucial
balance.
to hand-eye development. So when children are not only exposed to it, but it's part of their kind of regular day or routine or something, they're building their own resiliency and their own way of learning and their own way of intaking the world very directly in a biological sense.
Now, isn't this also good for adults to do?
100%. 100%. Rolling, trampoline. There are exercises called brain gym, which are phenomenal, created by Paul Dennison maybe 30 years ago or all. And that's where the elephant ears are.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, I put on elephant ears before we got connected this morning.
Right.
Today. And so before business meetings, there's tapping on different points of our body that can help either soothe us or awaken us or integrate us so that we have more cohesive thought patterns and things like that. There's absolutely, we can be using it. And I find I have young grandchildren now, and the rolling, there's such joy that they have.
Well, you can't help but laugh.
Oh, you can't help but laugh.
I mean, it's a happy thing.
It absolutely is. And when they start to do it on their own, it becomes a self-regulation. Children move naturally because they need to. So all these things within our educational system and to keep children in chairs facing the front, stay still, it's anti-neuroscience.
And it's like it's tickling them so they will laugh.
The movement? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So
absolutely.
How about vibrational health? How can you explain that in this, applying it?
Well, so vibrational health would be the application of energy to our daily life and in a healthy way. For example, we know that food carries energy. We know that our bodies carry energy. We know that the work done by Dr. Candace Pert 30-some years ago in her book, Molecules of Emotion, we know that emotion is carried in the cells of our body. Well, when we also know that our cells and atoms are live wires, then our emotions have an electric quality to them. And that energetic quality is a vibration that can be measured. And so when we talk about things like vibration or resonance or entrainment, these are energetic terms that help us understand the impact that we can have with our emotions when we enter a room, when we're on a phone call, when we're talking with our child. And most of us know some kind of example of entrainment. For example, college girls, when they room together, they often get on a similar menstrual cycle. Right. And that's entrainment. So there are everyday examples of entrainment. And if we can, again, use that notion of HeartMath research. So HeartMath Institute is in California, where you are. And about 25 years ago, they've done such phenomenal research with the heart variability rate and how we can control our emotions in a very healthy way by having a calm heart variability rate that is measured by instruments. And this is measuring the electrical impulse of the heart. So I'm saying that because when we enter a room, and heart math research has shown that we affect people within an 8-foot radius of ourselves.
8 foot? Oh my gosh, I thought it was like 3 foot out, and you say it's 8 feet. Wow.
I think it's 8 feet.
Wow.
And what that means is it gives us an idea of the responsibility that we may have to stay in a certain vibrational alignment with being kind, being compassionate, whatever our values happen to be, whatever it is that we would like to be around. If we first embody it, it means that it's more likely to happen because others are likely to.
Happy, happy, joy, joy.
Really? Okay, I love that.
It's not my original saying, but I love saying it.
Okay, good. Well, I love that too. And there really is, when we choose joy, there is a palatable vibration that comes with it. And there is a whole, the scale of how you measure vibration is an interesting study in itself, because color has vibration, sound has vibration, our bodies have vibration. So when we talk about vibrational health, we're talking about our entire environment. Nature has vibration.
Everything.
So it has vibration. Everything is energy. That's the essential quantum physics right there. Everything is energy. So when we're aware of it, we can more readily take care of it, navigate it, and really master it. To me, the goal is really to master our own energies, because when we are able to do that,
the energy, and how it affects us and everything. And I know one thing I wanted to ask or make a comment was, it's so important for parents to be in touch with their energy source and their energy when it comes to parenting.
Absolutely. That is, most of us know when we come home from work or a tough day or a challenging situation, we walk in the door and we usually bring everything with us. So if we bring that to our young children, that's what, we're kind of bringing it as a gift and saying, here we are. Is that really the gift that we want to bring? Or do we want to kind of wash ourselves of some of that energy before we meet the child where they're at? Because they typically don't carry that energy.
Yeah.
And I call it the difference between horizontal energy and vertical energy. And the horizontal would be our relationships with things and people and processes, work relationships, whatever it might be, that are often more entangling, or a vertical relationship which is within ourselves and a higher power or God or the universe or whatever speaks to us, guardian angels, whatever they may be. And that vertical energy, as opposed to being entangled, is more entwined, more like a dance.
Right,
and so if we can be in that spot of alignment with the vertical energy when we meet our child, because that's where they naturally are, these young children, that's where they naturally are. They don't know anything different.
Right. And I think it needs to be applied to your spouse, to your partners, to, the people you live with.
Absolutely.
And the biggest piece, as far as my interpretation is, being able to let go of like the negative, let go, release and let go before you go in the door.
Absolutely.
I know it's not always easy because of the emotional impact, but it's so important. There's, again, that consciousness, that awareness.
Yes. Yeah. And when children are little, there's different things that you can set up to help you let go. And I call them, it's a pattern interrupt. So a pattern interrupt might be, I was a I was a single working mom with children, 3 children under the age of 5. And I was not able to always be in this aligned state by any means. And the stresses that come with all that is, I'm sure many of your viewers and listeners would understand and probably have lived them. And at a certain point, I decided I can't do this by myself. I can't let go of these things by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I enlisted my children, and it's something I recommend for others as well. And I help others do this, but I enlisted my children, and I said, here's the deal. If you hear something that you don't like from mommy, if mommy sounds unkind or she sounds mean, then you can say, mommy, shake it off.
And you gave them permission to do that.
I gave them permission, and I said, and then when you say that, we're going to jump around like jumping beans, and we're going to say, shake it off, shake it off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And Cheryl, Dr. Cheryl, you cannot stay in a bad vibration if you're jumping around like a jumping bean.
No, because it's fun. You want to laugh.
Absolutely. We end up giggling and rolling on the floor, and that's a big,
getting the endorphins going.
Absolutely. And the dopamine is running, and you are, and the oxytocin. And so it's a pattern interrupt. So that energy just, boom, got slashed. That energy that I came in with from that work environment, whatever I was carrying, that this child just said, mommy, shake it off. And boom, here we're jumping, whether I want to jump.
This is great for adults.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily you apply it to children, but I mean, of course you apply it to children, but just, adults need to do it.
Well, and you know that in energy medicine, that this is part of what's happening. There's shaking that goes on.
Yeah.
There's, physical letting go. You can visualize as well. We know the power of visualization for many people, if that's how they intake the world,
right?
If that's their key learning style and all of that. So absolutely, these are things that can be done with adults. Okay. That's the fun part. And we were talking about vibrational health, and
yes.
And I just mentioned briefly about food, but if we think real quickly about food having vibration and sound having vibration, then we can imagine processed food. What vibration does it have? Well, it's dead. It's dead. As opposed to
are you talking about cooked food or
any processed food?
Oh, processed. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Processed.
Yep.
Processed
of course.
Food.
Yeah.
As opposed to fresh. Fresh still carries the vibration, the living life force within it. So there's a difference between what we ingest in those two different life forces.
Oh, yeah.
One doesn't have one, and one does. And I mean, I'm chocolate all the way, but I don't necessarily eat it from the plant. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. The cacao plant. Yeah. No, I've actually have pretty much given up chocolate.
Oh.
I know that's even hard for me to say.
Wow.
But it's the sugar, and it's not good for my digestion.
Oh yeah. Yep. Especially the way that it's very hard to find chocolate or many things that are made purely, that are the least amount of processing possible, and all of that. And certainly there are a couple of places that make that have sugar alternatives. And I don't mean sucralose or aspartame, but of course I mean like stevia or
xylitol is a good one.
Yeah, xylitol, mannitol, and things, but they do have different effects on different people. So,
right.
Yeah.
You have to experiment with it, because I've tried, because I have a sugar sensitivity, I've tried all kinds of sugars, and I really don't even like stevia, because to me it tastes kind of chemical. In my chemistry, so I like xylitol, and it doesn't raise the glycemic index. It's much more expensive, and I don't like paying for it, but what do? It's commitment to being healthy.
And one day they will probably be able to tell us the difference in vibration between all of these different sugar products.
Yeah, well, They're
Because
coming.
the stevia, of course, most of the stevia we know now is processed, but if you actually have a leaf from the stevia tree, that tastes different.
Yeah,
Or
no,
it's not a tree, I think it's a bush, but
yeah.
a plant.
So how can we
Yeah, what
support?
else?
How can we support the kids of today, especially the millennials?
Oh, well, the millennials,
Yes,
that's a big question.
I know it is, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
Well, I think,
how can we support them? It's because they're so entrenched in technology, and I mean, this doesn't apply to all of them, but the social interaction, the communication has really broken down, except when they do their texting, but to actually verbalize, and how can we support them in changing this?
yeah, the biggest thing is to see them for who they are, when, in some cases they can't see themselves.
Yes.
And, of course, they're developing relationships in a different fashion. They're developing relationships through social media. They're developing relationships through the online video gaming. I mean, those are communities they're definitely communities that they're part of, but it's entirely different. I really believe strongly in the power of nature. That is something that every child of every age, 8 to 80, so to speak,
Yep.
would be wise to regularly be in nature. It is the consummate normalizer, the consummate equalizer. We have it and we ignore it most of the time. It is, there is so much richness that can come from spending time in nature without the technology.
Amen.
I think that's it. It is Mother Nature is healing, and it is very disturbing. And I agree with you. I just read a statistic that the depression statistics are phenomenal, horribly, for teens.
Yeah.
And related directly to suicide. And that's a whole nother discussion. But this is, it's something that when we can catch children early in life and help them with touchstones for joy, touchstones for peace, touchstones to help them find themselves and develop their own sense of self, then those touchstones can be there forever. That they then later in life, when they need help, when they need some resilience, that they have something that they can pull upon, that they can recall, that they can emote about. We know the power of emotions. Emotions
foundation,
are, yes.
It's a foundation of healthy application.
Absolutely. And the power of emotions can't be understated here at all, because emotions are what we know is what really manifests our world. So we can think in a certain way, but when we emote, then things happen quicker, they happen sooner. It's much more powerful energetically to emote than it is to think. They're both important.
Yes, the balance, but the emotion. I mean, it's been proven that when someone can feel you after listening to you speak, they're moved. And
yes.
when it's that when they aren't as moved through the thinking communication,
yeah.
but it's the heart base.
It's absolutely it, and that's what I talk about the journey of parenting being a journey of discernment, as opposed to judgment. That discernment is a cultivation of the heart, and the more that we can cultivate the heart, again, which carries its own energy. And there's research that has shown that the heart actually has more neurons than the brain. But if we can cultivate the senses of the heart, that we'll be okay. We'll not only be okay, we can lead our children into a more rewarding and fulfilling way of living. And this is my concern about the teens right now, is that as families, parenting is hard right now. This is really hard with the technology and the social media, and a number of other things happening in the world. But the expectations of children we have to be careful about. And the ABCs of parenting are just really critical. And the A's being, we have to continue to be aware of what the impact is. So when we see that teenage depression is high, what does that mean if we have a 1-year-old? We need to use that information to nurture our 1-year-old so that they are resilient when they become teenagers. And they're still going to go through hormonal changes and biological things, but developing a family presence that honors the child for who they uniquely are and energetically supports them is one way to do it. And developing experiences for them.
Yep. One thing that comes to mind about this in having a millennial daughter myself is, parents, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think in my evaluation is that parents have not allowed their millennial children to experience pain emotionally. And I think that it's kind of an epidemic because they have become almost apathetical or numb. Numb is emotionally numb because they had their parents kind of step in. I mean, this is what I've been observing, and that the only way you can really learn is to experience, work through that experience emotionally. You can't have it done for you, otherwise it doesn't do any good. What's your take on that?
Well, I think a couple of things. I think there are ways to impact children so that they are resilient later in life with millennials that include role modeling. And that's kind of an old way to put it, but it really is energetic modeling. Because words have energy, and what you say and who you are has more energy. And for the millennials, I hesitate to generalize with them because they run a broad spectrum, and parents are one influence, but social media is really the big influence.
Yeah.
And the best thing that parents can do, there are helicopter parents. Now there are lawnmower parents or snowplow parents. Dr. Cheryl, who
what do you mean by snowplow?
Yeah, well, I think lawnmower and snowplow are similar, but it basically is they remove obstacles from that are in their children's way before their children have a chance to experience.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is the new helicopter parents were the ones that would go even to the college professor and say, my son, missed his lunch today. Here it is. So we have to let children and young adults be themselves. We have to trust that they're here for a reason, and our parenting journey doesn't end, but it changes. Yes. We don't have to treat them as if they're young when they're older, and
right.
There's all kinds of wisdom.
And that's where that discernment comes in.
Well, and discernment is it's the sensing of subtle energies so that we can understand the nuances. Again, with what I really focus on is the 7 years of sacred early in life, when children, before they're born, before they can walk, before they can talk, they're giving us clues about who they are. And the discernment of those subtle energies is where it really is interesting, where it's fun, where it is, it's like a constant revelation. And we're not exactly sure if we're interpreting it correctly or not, and we may not know for 5 or 10 or 15 years. But when we can cultivate that discernment, which has to do with vertical energy, our vertical alignment, then we can more easily see the children for who they're here to be and craft their experiences to allow them to flourish in that.
And that also is dependent upon how aware the parent is.
At 100%
I mean,
it does, yes.
that is a
Yeah,
key, Anyway.
it does.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful, wonderful information.
I think I mentioned the ABCs. You're reminding me. The A is aware, and the B is that parents, especially now, Dr. Cheryl, they need to be bold. They need to be bold in setting boundaries, in making time to outpicture the values of the family.
Yeah.
If it is a family value to be in nature, and the children are otherwise engaged, or the parent is too tired, you still have to be bold enough to say, we're going to be out there for 20 minutes, no matter what. We're going to be out there.
I think that's an understatement for what you're saying, because especially with what's going on outside, in the forces that are out there politically, the media, etc. I think that is a key. Totally, it is a key component of being a successful parent, especially today.
Well, there are many parents who would rather go with the trends, rather be seen as part of the pack, rather be seen as following new, I can only say trends, as opposed to developing their own notion of what their values are for their own family. And the C of ABCs is to be curious, to be innately curious about the child. And that means removing our own ego and trying to really to see with the heart instead of with our mind, and to be open to a different interpretation than what our mind might do. Because children may, for example, a 3-year-old, we may say is misbehaving, when in fact they're not misbehaving. They're showing us who they are. They're engaging in some kind of activity that shows us how they learn, or what they're interested in, or something like that. So,
I never like to say that my daughter went through the terrible twos, because to me, they're not terrible. She was just exercising her autonomy.
Yeah, I love that. I actually don't espouse any terrible twos. I think they're terrific twos. In fact, they're pretty phenomenal. If you can, what I think the term terrible twos comes from, when children are 2, they become interested in developing their own will. That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And when it's against what we want them to do, then we call it terrible. But if we instead give them 3 choices, and all those choices are acceptable to us, we find that the 2s are actually pretty terrific, and they're pretty fun.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I agree with you.
And
absolutely.
I think that what you just said, and I'm just mirroring it back to you, is giving them choices.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key. To circumventing some negative energy.
It is. It's the key to keep them aligned with what they're naturally inclined to do.
So, my goodness, what other wonderful, that fly just doesn't want to go away.
Did you see that fly?
He's gone now. Goodbye. So, what else can you share that, this is, to me, such valuable information. I don't think it's old information. I think this is all new, and it's sustainable. As times change, and we're becoming more evolved as human beings on so many levels, even though on a lot of levels it doesn't look like it outside in some areas in this country or the world. But generally, I think, we have opportunities to evolve even more. And, I think some of your teaching is definitely a higher learning.
Well, thank you. I agree with you that evolvement is a worthy goal, and it's absolutely necessary. And I'm so passionate about the sacredness of parenting in these early years, being that sweet spot between science and spirit, that sweet spot where the latest research meets ancient wisdom. And because there's so much that we know from indigenous cultures that play out in research. And so to ignore or to dismiss something seems silly when, in fact, there's a sweet spot between the two that when we can apply it to early in life, can start to benefit new generations in a new way, in a new way. So I feel absolutely passionate about that. And the abilities that we have to understand the energetics of our own bodies and our relationships and the food and our environments, to me, that's the one area where we could have the most impact, the most growth. This area is exploding in terms of psychology and medicine and all, the energetics of it, and the energetics of belief, the energetics of thought, the energetics of emotion. And again, taking all this phenomenal research that's happening, the energetics of prayer, which has been now 20, 25 years worth. Larry Dossey, a very skeptical medical doctor, who's written now several books, has done extensive research to understand what he calls the non-local mind. So this is when people are using the power of prayer to see, does it make a difference or not? And it does.
And it does.
People
Amen.
who don't know who they're praying for. And prayer is just one form of energy.
Yeah.
There's other ways that you can have energy. You can have it through loving thoughts, kindness, compassion, some other
And
ways.
visualization.
Absolutely, visualization. So I think I'm excited about the next 20 years that we will be able to absorb more of the research around energetics and apply it to the beginning of life. And this is what's most exciting to me, because it becomes then a key component in our resiliency as we go through life.
Yes.
And there is research that shows right now that children who have a spiritual basis in the first several years of life, when they become teens, they're less likely to engage in or to be affected by peer pressure. They're more resilient. They're more independent. They have more of a sense of self. And by the way, this is research that says a spiritual base, not a religious base.
Right, exactly.
There's a difference between them, because there is not research that shows the religious piece. But that's so each. But this is that families need to embrace whatever belief system they have, whatever value system they have, and the more they can create a family presence, and that's an energetic presence around it, the more the family will be resilient as well.
Amen. Oh, no. Thank you for that. Wow, you have shared a plethora of information, Kathleen, and we are starting to come down to our last hurrah here. So if there's any other wonderful, bits of information that you want to share, please feel free.
Well, I think that there are, parenting is its own journey. Grandparenting is another journey. Being a business person, an entrepreneur, is another journey. We each have roles in life that we are here to fulfill, and to be sensitive to the callings, to the things that call us, is so important. And that starts with the sacred childhood. If we did not have a sacred childhood, how does it affect us? Well, that some of the indigenous wisdom tells us that changes we make now affect 7 generations ahead of us and 7 generations back. And that's exciting too. So it's never too late to make a change, to evolve to a better place of being. And I really think that's the key. And that's, Dr. Cheryl, you had mentioned it, evolvement, and our commitment to that, our awareness of it, our willingness to be open to continual evolving is what will make the difference in the world.
Absolutely.
It'll make a difference in our own home, in our own family, with our children, no matter what age they are. And many people who have grown adult children say to themselves, what could I have done differently, whatever, we can still meet them where they're at. We can still do work on the inner, which we haven't talked about at all, but that's a part of sacred parenting, is working on the inner with the higher self of your child. From my higher self to my child's higher self.
Are you speaking from a parent, in their higher self, or the child in their higher self?
Both higher selves talking, communicating.
Yep.
I say talking, but I really mean working together, playing together. It can be as simple as a prayer before bedtime, between my higher self and my child's higher self. Help us meet tonight as we're sleeping, so we can work out whatever differences we have, so that we can find joy together, so that we can support each other, be whoever we're meant to be. That's just one simple thing we can do, and that I recommend for my clients that we do with young children too, because again, they're not able to clearly talk to us about
and
what
it's
their
so
choices
important, as you're saying, to be on that positive swing, that loving, kind, positive swing. Things just get so much, people, I think, learn more, and they can produce more and act out and take action when it's happy and flowing and kind and loving.
I would agree with that. And one thing you said was flowing. Sometimes it's more flowing to be authentic, even in pain, than it is to be a false happy.
Oh, totally.
Excuse me. And but that the goal would be a more joyful or uplifting vibration is absolutely a good spot to aim for. Well, I could talk about the importance of what I call sacred curiosity, and that's the ability to see with the heart, and the ability to remove our own filters so that we aren't unintentionally interrupting what we're maybe seeing or sensing. It's using all of our senses, not only our outer 5 senses, but also our inner senses. The inner senses would be they typically could be called clairvoyance or clairaudience or those kinds of things. They are true senses in that most of us have the ability to cultivate, that we can connect with our children.
Don't you call that the 6th sense?
There's more than 6, so
there's like 8.
It goes deeper. But when we're curious about our children in a sacred way, we're honoring who they are. If we're curious from the ego, we're looking to kind of validate our own thought, like, that he's interested in that frog because I like frogs, as opposed to he may be interested in that frog for other reasons. He might be his natural intelligence might be one of nature. So frogs, trees, and snakes may all hold value for him. And the sacred curiosity celebrates the child as who they are again. So thank you for letting me share these notions of how we can see our children more clearly, because they benefit and we do.
And I'm looking forward to The Sacred Parent, your book.
The Sacred Parent, 9 Keys to Consciously Onboard Your Child to a Thriving Life. Yes, thank you so much, Dr.
I think
Scherek.
the timing couldn't be any better. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much. And I want to say thank you to my wonderful crew, Eric, Brad, and Gabi. Thank you so much. And of course, Marin TV and Zoom. Thank you so much, Kathleen, for your...
Thank you, Dr. Cheryl. What an honor to talk with you.
For your sacred information. Oh.
Thank you. It's available.